Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Nathan.
Welcome to episode 123 of Adventures and Mousecapades.
This week, we're talking about how when you haven't seen 2/3 of your wardrobe for 3 months, everything is new.
Wait, you have your clothes back?
Well, I do as of yesterday have... Actually, no, I don't have everything. There's still a box.
I should finish building my closet.
Details. I don't know. Caitlin's bed's working really well for you.
And closet, yes. No, I miss having a closet. I'm almost done, I think. My closet's a little bigger than yours, so it's
there. Yes,
my
it
closet's
is.
a little bigger, so it's taking a little longer.
It is. Well, Alicia, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the sensory-friendly performance of Disney's Aladdin, the hit Broadway musical that we just saw over at the Paramount in Seattle for STG Presents.
Yeah, this was awesome. This was the regular touring Broadway show of Aladdin, Disney's musical, and they did a very special performance that they do every once in a while. Ironically, it's usually with Disney shows of a sensory-friendly performance. And our original plan was we were going to go to a regular performance and a sensory-friendly performance, and kind of compare and contrast what's different and everything like that. Now, life has gotten in our way this week.
Yep.
And we did not make it to the regular performance. That said, we've been to enough shows that I think we kind of understand what was trimmed out here and there. And this was still a really amazing show to see.
Yes.
And yeah, we're going to kind of talk about the accommodations that the theater group makes for folks who have all sorts of needs.
Yep. And we have seen Disney's Aladdin at the Paramount before. It was just many, many years ago.
Yes.
And we've seen Disney's Aladdin on the Disney Fantasy cruise ship as well.
This was better.
Yes, this was much better.
Now, I don't say this was better just because this was better. I mean, this was a little better, but I mean, I mostly chalk that up to the show is 2 to 3 times longer because they just have more time and space and availability of sets and things like that. But also, it doesn't have those nightmare masks.
Yes.
That are in the Aladdin show on the cruise ships. That is in the Cave of Wonders and Friend Like Me. And there is a chorus line of genies that comes out on the ships. And everybody is wearing a mask that makes them look like the genie.
The genie mask. And they have their, their blue outfits on, but the masks are terrifying.
It's disturbing beyond all. Just
Nightmare
But we
fuel.
didn't do that today.
Yeah.
We didn't do that today. That is not in this show. That just wasn't cut for sensory-friendly needs. That was just not in this show.
That's not in the Broadway version. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Alicia, when we got there, things were a little different than what we're used to. Can you kind of share what we noticed?
Yes. There have been a little bit of modifications for the theater. I should also notate that we are a bit more bougie with our Broadway experience than some others may be. We are a member of Seattle Theater Group's Paramount Club. There's a separate lounge area where we can go to during performances, and we have our own little separate entrance. We did go in the separate entrance, and I noticed that somebody from Primera Insurance was there asking, like, are you guests of Primera? So obviously they had families that were coming in that were guests of Primera to come see the sensory friendly performance, which is awesome.
Yeah.
They also had different areas throughout the theater that are basically sensory areas. So there's beanbags on the floor, nice clear area. There's fidget toys available for kids. There's little squishy ball type things and just fidget objects.
Yeah. And they had the Paramount Club, which is downstairs at the theater here in Seattle. And that was actually closed for regular members, but it was open as a just kind of a non-sensory area. It was very quiet down there, and it was meant to be kind of an escape space if somebody needed to kind of have an escape.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't closed off at all. It just, you didn't have to give your name to get in. It was just wide open. Anybody could go in there. It was nice and quiet. There was nobody at the bar. Nobody
The bar
serving
was
drinks.
closed.
The bar was closed. Yeah.
I'm guessing the catering wasn't happening either.
No catering was out. Nope.
Yeah.
There were lots of seats available, and it was nice and quiet in there if anybody needed a little moment to get away. They also had a donkey.
That's right. Pete the donkey was there.
The donkey was there.
There's a little coffee bar off the main lobby on the first floor. And we walked by, and there was a sign on an easel that said Pete's on a break with a picture of, it looks like a miniature pony, like a miniature donkey, cute as a button. Evidently, Pete needed a little downtime on his own. We got there right before curtain, so I'm not surprised that they had already taken him away, as it were. But yeah, it was really cool. They had all sorts of accommodations going on for folks of various needs.
Yeah, it was very nice. So they had ASL available for the performance. They had closed captioning. Some of the things that they did for this was there was a lower sound level. Decibels never went above 90 for the performance, which is very nice, especially for those with auditory sensory issues. They reduced any strobe lighting or lighting that was focused on the audience. They also left what would you call that? The lighting.
They left the house lights up. Not all the way, but they left them probably at like 25% throughout the whole show, with the exception of one number where they needed the house to be dark so that, so that the magic wasn't spoiled. Let's put it that way.
They also make it so if people need to get up and leave their seats, they can do that during the performance. It's okay to do that. There's a lot of space throughout the theater available for just standing and moving around. They also allow use of tablets and smartphones and other electronic devices with headphones. You can use your headphones and stuff.
Right.
During regular performances, that is obviously not okay to do.
Right.
This is one of the accommodations that they were offering for this.
And obviously they didn't want you rather to record the show or take pictures. This was if you have somebody who needs to check out and was okay to stay in the seat and they had a phone or something like that, it was okay for them to be looking at their phone.
They had, like we said earlier, there's sensory supports available. There's fidget stuffs. There were earplugs, noise-canceling earmuffs that you could pick up before the show if those were needed.
They welcomed people to bring their own manipulatives or seat cushions or comfort objects, whatever extra support items that folks felt they needed to be comfortable when they were in the space. And they had lots of extra staff and volunteers around to make sure that everybody was super comfortable with what was going on and that they had a very welcoming and open experience. Before the show started up, we had Jafar come out on stage. This is in front of the curtain. And he got booed, which was kind of funny. I mean, he's the bad guy, right? Everybody knows he's the bad guy.
Villain.
Exactly. But it was really cool because he came out and he was not the character. He was like, "Hi, my name is Anand. I'm playing Jafar, who's one of the characters in the show, and I want to welcome everybody here to just see our story." And he talked a lot about how people are going to see all sorts of different emotions on stage and feel all sorts of different emotions. And people are going to have all sorts of different and unique perspectives on the show, and somebody who's sitting down in the first floor is going to have a different experience from somebody who's in the mezzanine, from somebody who is in the orchestra pit, from somebody who is on stage, from a stagehand off stage. Like, he talked about all these different experiences and how it was a really neat experience for those actors to share in this moment together with us. I thought it was a really awesome way to welcome an audience, especially a lot of folks who are not the normal theater crowd that we're used to being at a show with, to make them feel included, to make them feel okay, that, hey, everybody's going to have a little bit of something different going on, and that everything was okay. However you feel, if you have some emotions that you feel, it's okay. If you feel sad or scared, that's okay. If you laugh or if something's funny, go ahead and chuckle. If you love something, go ahead and clap. Like, it was really awesome to have him come out and really welcome and kind of set the stage, as it were, for what was going to happen.
One of the sentences he said that I really liked was, "We are all experiencing the show together. We have told this story many, many times, but we have never told it to you."
Yeah, it was cool to make it seem unique. You know, it was not just their 500th time telling this show or this story, but it was the first time they've been with us as an audience. And it was the first time us as an audience has ever been together. I love that perspective. It was really neat.
STG also had some guides available on their website about the show, which was very helpful. There's a social story where you can use this to talk to whoever you're going to the show with and basically just prepare them for what they're going to see, what's going to happen day of. It gives some suggestions on how to talk about it, what the theater is going to be like, where the restrooms are, that there's break rooms, things like that. And something that it mentioned in there that we did not know about is a talk back. There was a talk back after the show that we didn't find out about until we were on the road. And what a talk back is, it's when actors come out after the show. The actors will not have their costumes on. They'll come out and answer questions from the audience. I think it's amazing that they did that.
Yeah, I really wish we would have known about that. We absolutely would have stayed and watched.
Yeah.
They also had a character sheet available. And I think this is super helpful for especially the young kids, whether it's a sensory thing or not, to kind of say like, hey, here's Aladdin. And they have a picture of Aladdin from the movie. And then they have a picture of the actor who's playing Aladdin here in the stage show. And so folks can understand like, oh, I've seen this character on the movie. Here's what they look like on stage. And so they can kind of better understand who's who and what's going on. And they give a little kind of a quick character bio. Like, Aladdin is a resourceful but reluctant thief. Aladdin seeks a life beyond the confines of poverty. His best friends are Babak, Omar, and Kasim. And Babak, Omar, and Kasim are kind of three other thieves. They kind of take the role of Abu. Obviously, there's not a monkey on stage. Well, I guess not obviously. There's just not a monkey on stage. But the kind of sidekick antics and everything and humor aspects and stuff like that are taken over by these three characters. And they did such a fantastic job. They did. I actually thought they kind of stole the show a little bit.
I liked those characters a lot.
They were fantastic.
Yeah. Jasmine also does not have a tiger in the Broadway show.
Right. There's not a big cat on stage.
No. In the character sheet, it says Jasmine's attendants are her confidants and companions. And there's the picture from the movie Raja the Tiger, and then there's a picture from the show, her confidants, her attendants.
Right.
Iago is there, but he's not a parrot.
He's not a parrot. Although it was really funny. There's a line early on where the character Iago is kind of repeating a few things that Jafar had said. And Jafar just turns to him to go, are you just going to parrot everything back to me? Like there was a bunch of really great one-liners that I really appreciate. Like, there's some stuff in there for the adults in this show.
Oh, Disney was really good at that.
Sure.
Yes.
More so than the movie, though. Like, there's like current modern Disney references and things like that are littered throughout this show.
Yeah.
Like, parents pay attention. It's so good.
There are a lot of songs in the show that are not in the movie. And I quite enjoyed the addition of all that. I think the last time we saw Aladdin on Broadway was probably 7 or 8 years ago. It
was absolutely in the before times.
And I did not remember this show because I've seen the movie multiple times between that and now.
Right.
So I have the movie in my head. So it was nice. This is kind of like a refresh for me. I didn't remember half the stuff that was in this. So it was nice to see. And I liked the songs. I wish we could have heard them a little better, but I still liked the songs.
Yeah. And I think that is some of that is because of the sensory performance where the audio level was just a little bit lower. But I will say our bougie seats that we get with Paramount Club are without a doubt the best seats in the house with which to view a show. We are basically almost every show front row center of the mezzanine of the balcony. Like, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, they're probably the worst seats in the house audio wise. You're just sitting in the cone or outside of the cone of most of the speakers. Like, the sides are going past you, the uppers are going to the balcony above you. You're just kind of in a little bit of a muddy spot. And it makes hearing some of the dialogue a little tough at times. And so I don't know that we would have heard better if it was a little bit louder. It may not have helped too much.
Yeah, I don't know. There's some muddy aspects of it, to be sure. I did take use of the closed captioning multiple times, though, especially during songs, and some of Jeannie's lines. It's just hard to hear everything.
Yeah.
Another thing that Seattle Theater Group provided was the sensory guide. And this is really nice. It shows you the general considerations for the show, how long the show is going to be, what is getting cut out of it. So like no strobes, no strobe type effects or lighting, no streamers or confetti. The volume is going to be kept lower. And it gives you a scene by scene breakdown showing if there's any specific sensory impacts that are going to show up, like if there's an auditory impact, if there's a visual impact, if there's an emotional impact. And I just love that it goes through scene by scene. Like, I'll just say scene 4, Jasmine's chambers. Jasmine enters. The description is decibels go up to 85 and there is an auditory impact.
Right. Or you could look at scene 9, which is in the Cave of Wonders, where treasures fill the cavern. There's high visual stimulation and complex visuals. There's some bright stage lighting. There's a rumble. And most importantly, there's tap dancing. Tap dancing can be scary.
Yes. Well, the sensory impact for that scene shows an auditory impact, a visual impact, and emotional impact.
Indeed.
But I love that they offer this. It's really quite helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So putting aside some of the sensory stuff, and there were a few things that I did notice, like there was some lightning flashes and there wasn't a big, rumble and thunder and stuff like that. And it wasn't like stroby. I believe based on the sensory guide, there's a few things probably towards the end where some streamers come out, a big pop and things like that didn't happen. Other than that, I thought it was a really fantastic show. I mean, there wasn't a lot of stuff that was obviously like, oh, that's missing, or they've clearly cut stuff. It worked really well for me.
Yeah.
What did you think of the performance overall?
I thought it was very good. One oddity, they switched Aladdin's in the middle of the show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we had a announcement right before the end of intermission. Your attention, please. The role of Aladdin for the rest of the show will be played by, and I didn't catch which person it was, but it was just interesting. I don't think we've ever been at a show where they changed characters in the middle like
Mid-show,
that. So
yeah. So I don't know if that was planned or if it was maybe the actor wasn't feeling well. Who knows? But that was interesting.
if he wasn't feeling well or had an injury or voice was going a little bit, it sure didn't show, because I thought that the first Aladdin from the first act was absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
As was the second act.
Yeah.
They were both great.
Both Aladdins were superb.
Yes.
Nice job, Aladdins. No, I liked the show. I enjoy that it is different from the movie. I enjoy the antics of the Abus, his cohorts there. I liked the additional songs. I thought they added well to the story.
There was definitely some additions of like some dancing or some other things that were going on where I was like, oh, they're clearly buying time for a costume change or for a set thing to happen. Like there was seeing a lot of shows like we do, there was some obvious like, oh, I understand why you've put a few of these things in because you're setting up or you're buying some time for Genie to make a change or Aladdin to make a costume change, that kind of thing. It wasn't a problem. It was just something that stuck out to me in my brain.
I could tell, I think in the Cave of Wonders, I do think they modified that performance a bit in order to be sensory friendly for this show. For some reason, I remember it being much more over the top, just a lot more stuff there.
Yeah. They actually had a disco ball with, a spotlight and lights going around the whole theater. And I actually thought to myself like, I'm actually kind of surprised they did that because that is lights shining out into the audience. You have, those speckles going around the whole room. So it's not a problem. It wasn't a problem for us, but I just thought that was the one thing that I was surprised they kept in. I understand why they did, but it was,
I don't think it was fully lit though. I mean, it did notate in the scene breakdown, it did notate that there were high visual stimulation and complex visuals throughout this scene, as well as bright stage lighting.
Got it. So they're kind of covering their bases.
Yeah, I think so. But it wasn't as stupendous as it usually is. It was still amazing though.
I loved the score. The score of this show is so good, especially the opener. I remember leaning over and mentioning to Alicia, I was like, man, this is like The Incredibles does Aladdin. Like that, I don't think it was Michael Giacchino involved in this score, but man, the music was incredible. Like it's just a slightly different take. Like the classic themes are there, but especially in the opening, just the stylistic touches are just amazing. I really appreciated that. And man, the pit orchestra was fantastic.
Yes. Musicians were amazing.
How do you think this compares in your mind to a Disney Cruise Line show? Now, obviously, time is a different thing.
Yes.
So like those shows are like max maybe an hour, maybe an hour 5. This was, a 2-hour show with an intermission.
This just cemented into my head how astounding the DCL stage performers are. To me, and you mentioned this too, this was very similar to a DCL show.
Yeah.
Where you have the distractions.
Yes. You have the audience distractions. It's not as crazy loud. It seems like they're pretty similar caliber wise. Yeah. I mean, these were national touring folks. Now, looking through the book, there's a bunch of folks who are making their debut with this tour, which is awesome. But no shade, like I don't find that to be a problem. If this was like, oh, I've been touring this show for years and years, like I would have believed it. Like these folks were just absolutely fantastic. And especially because we just saw a bunch of Disney shows on the cruise ships. We were just on the Dream and the Wish not too long ago. I thought the quality was on par, and that is not a slight on these touring actors at all. It is amazing what the DCL crews are able to pull off on a cruise ship. It's just fantastic. I made a comment to Alicia that like, this is what a DCL show would be if there wasn't time constraints and they had like, 8 semi trucks worth of stage and costumes.
Yeah. I mean, you hear all the time that DCL has Broadway caliber shows, and they certainly do.
Yeah.
There's just considerations that are made or accommodations that are made on the ships in order to do these productions, first off on the water, and in a smaller theater, kind of, I think.
But I think there's more stage constraints. Let's put it that way.
Stage constraints, and then also with just an audience that may not be fully used to how you act, how you are in a theater.
Right.
Gosh, I sound so snobby. Oh my God.
I know. It's hard to make that comment and not sound snobby.
Yeah.
And thank you for jumping in first because I was about to go there. It is like we're theater people. Like we're just more familiar with, when to be quiet, not move around, don't want to disturb other people. And I think on a Disney cruise, you've got a bunch more kids. We were at a matinee, we were at a sensory friendly show. There's a bunch of kids. There's just a lot more crowd noise going on. To me, it was a very similar experience to sitting in the Walt Disney Theater on one of the ships. And it's not bad. If I had a preference, because blessedly we don't need to go to a sensory friendly show all the time, I prefer to go to a regular show. But going to this one, I didn't feel like we really lost anything. I still really loved it and really appreciated it.
Yeah. Appreciation. That's the big thing. Is I really appreciate the fact that Seattle Theater Group has something like this, where people who are not normally probably able to go to the theater and see shows and see professional performers on stage and hear the professional musicians. I love that this is something that people can do.
It's a safe space for them to go.
Yes.
They don't have to feel self-conscious or parents don't have to feel, embarrassed or self-conscious about what their kids are going to do or things like that. Like, it's not anything goes, right? But it's also like, it's a safe space. It's an opening to just experience something that most of these folks probably would never choose to put themselves into this situation. Yeah. And I wish more shows did this. I understand why they don't, but it's interesting. The last show, I think, Alicia, you were looking up before, the last full sensory friendly show that was here in Seattle was back in 2020, early 2020 with Frozen. And it's interesting that the shows that have been sensory friendly have been the Disney shows that have come through town. I would love to see a sensory friendly Wicked or a sensory friendly, like, lots of things that kids would love and enjoy. Cabaret probably doesn't need a sensory friendly show.
Yeah, please no. Well, you do need to realize it's not just kids though that are at these shows, and it's not just kids that need sensory friendly stuff. There are a lot of outbursts during the show, people being very vocal and just expressing themselves and just making noise. And like you said earlier, this is a safe space. They could do that. Yeah. But they were not all children. There was a lot of adults that were there too that needed the sensory friendly performance.
Yep. And kudos to the actors and the crew and everybody else for not getting thrown by that. I can't imagine how distracting that may be. If you're used to a quiet, dark house and you've got all this other stuff going on, the lights are up, you're probably going to see the audience a lot more than you're used to. Kudos to everybody who is on stage today for working through that and overcoming whatever distractions may have caught their eye. I think they did a fantastic job. I never, ever saw somebody on stage like be pulled out of the moment. Like, they did such an amazing job with all of this. The one thing I do want to add about this show, and it's not a slight against the performance, it's not a slight against the theater or the audience or anything else. I actually thought the second act was a little too short. Like, I understand that they need to cut some things, and there's definitely some plot adjustments that are made to kind of accommodate, hey, this isn't a cartoon, right? Yeah. But I felt like the second act after the intermission just went really fast.
It was rushed. Yeah, it seemed like it was rushed.
It felt like there was some leaps that were made story-wise that could have been expanded on a little bit. And again, that's not a performance thing. That's just like, that's the book. Like,
that's just the book. Yeah, it's just
I would have loved for another 10 minutes of the show. There's 11 scenes. It's interesting actually having the sensory guide because I know how many scenes are in each act. There's 11 scenes in the first act and there are just 9 scenes in the second act. I think it could have used another scene or two to just help flesh out some of the story points or just give it a little bit more room to sit. So I don't know, just my humble thoughts. I mean, what do I know? I mean, this is like an award-winning show on Broadway, so it's not like it's horrible or anything. I just thought that there was a few corners that were cut in the book, but I get why.
Yeah. I will say I really enjoyed Jafar's many costume changes at the very end there where he was making his wishes. It was like, oh, that's fun.
Yes.
Oh, that's fun.
That was amazing.
Yeah. He went from being vizier to sultan to genie, and it was like instantaneous costume change between those.
Right. And they were all with him standing in the same spot fully on stage and within like 2.5 minutes. Like, it was amazing to see. I thought the genie did a fantastic job. Marcus Martin was our genie today. And boy, he had so much energy that he brought to the role.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, this was a fun show. I very much enjoyed seeing it. I don't know what our next show is.
Well, you're the one who scheduled them all, so I don't know.
I could tell you. I just have to look.
A few moments later.
The next show we have is not sensory friendly, and it's Company.
Yeah, that's different. A little bit more adult.
I was looking through to see if there are any shows for next season that the Paramount's putting on that may possibly have sensory friendly. There's some good stuff there. Maybe Peter Pan. I don't know.
Oh,
we'll have to get in touch with Seattle Theater Group and see if they have anything planned for next year. I know they don't do this every year. I don't know if Peter Pan's a Disney production or not. It was a delight to see just the whole sensory friendly guide, how they did this.
Absolutely.
It opened my eyes a little bit more. It made me appreciate what Seattle Theater Group does.
100%. I would recommend this if you are in a family in a situation where you need a sensory friendly situation, a sensory friendly performance for whatever reason. You can't go wrong. Whether you're here in Seattle or I have to imagine that they do this elsewhere in the country as well on these touring performances. Get in touch with your local theater where these Broadway shows come through and ask about a sensory-friendly performance. And if they don't have one scheduled or they haven't thought about that, encourage them to look into it. There are a bunch of theaters out there. Seattle is absolutely one of them, but there's lots of folks out there who have done this before. And I think the more that we can normalize having these kind of options available for folks, the better off everybody's going to be. It really enhances it enhances the art. It brings it brings these shows to more people, and that can only be a good thing. And with that, we are not affiliated with Seattle Theater Group or Disney or any of their subsidiaries. These are our personal opinions and suggestions based on our own experiences. We recommend working with a travel agent or a booking agent or Ticketmaster or however you get theater tickets, or contacting Disney directly to plan your own perfect vacation/night out on the town.
If you have questions or suggestions or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your experience, please send an email to podcast@ourmousecapades.com.
Go ahead and give us a follow on social media. We're at Our Mousecapades. And please do give us a rating and review in your podcast app, especially Apple Podcasts, because that really is where everybody seems to pull from these days. That helps people find us.
Thank you for listening. We'll be in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.